The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. I chose this book because, I'm in the sports world. I play basketball here at the school, and I'm a part of the team, and I thought it'd be really cool to see what he thought was important to teams and what could hurt a team, and it really turned out to be a really great book, and I learned a lot of stuff. So some of the themes for the book, obviously one of the main themes is teamwork. A little background on the book, which I'll get into more later, is the author uses a story of a company and a CEO that works there to kind of tell a story of a management while tying in a team and the dysfunctions that it can go through. So the main theme is teamwork. And while this team works through these problems, one of the main things it has to do over and over and over is overcome obstacles using persistence and dedication. So those three themes really stick out strongly throughout the story. And then each of the five dysfunctions that I'm going to talk about a lot in this presentation stick out. So the absence of trust, the fear of conflict, the lack of commitment, the avoidance of accountability, and the inattention to results. So the real purpose of this book, is to show real-world examples of how the five dysfunctions can affect the team. So, he could have just wrote a book about his dysfunctions and his assessments and, finding out what he found out, but instead, he decided to tell a story of this company and use the story to paint a picture and tie it all together so people can understand more. So he's showing you those dysfunctions, he's showing you how to assess and understand problems that may happen in the team, and just to give teams a better chance at being successful, knowing what to look for when they're trying to find out maybe why their team isn't successful or things they need to do to make their team more successful. And just a quote that he uses in his book that I really like, and I think it's a really good quote, is that it is teamwork that remains the ultimate competitive advantage, both because it is so powerful and so rare. And I think that just speaks to what he's trying to do and show these teams that if you do this, you can really gain a competitive advantage from your team. And I just think that's what everyone's really wanting to do when they're working as a team. So the key question is, how can I show the complexity of running a team and a company while also explaining the five dysfunctions and what they mean to that team's success? So he kind of does a double on this one, and he tells the story to kind of show you that real world that I was talking about and give you examples in real life of how the dysfunctions affect the team and how it's going to go down. And then after that, he breaks them down individually, how to assess them, and how to overcome them, which I'm going to talk about some more. So just some quick information on the story background. It's about a company called Decision Tech, and they hire a woman named Catherine Peterson as a CEO, and they're kind of in a crisis. The company's been struggling, everyone's just kind of struggling, and they don't know what direction they're going to go. And throughout the story, Catherine's put in tough leadership situations. She's not sure what to do, but she always goes with her gut, and she always uses that persistence and dedication that we talked about in the first couple slides, themes of the story. And eventually they gain traction and end up having a lot of success. So the five dysfunctions. So the five dysfunctions is cool because it comes into a pyramid form. So you start at the bottom with the absence of trust, and then that leads up the pyramid to the fear of conflict, which leads up the pyramid to the lack of commitment, to avoidance of accountability, and the inattention to results. And I'm going to hit on this more later, so I'll just leave it at that for now. So so the absence of trust. This is that the trust in the team. The trust in the team is confidence among members that the people on their team just have the right intentions and they're working in the group for the right reasons and they just want everything to go well. And that's one of the main things to build trust. Another thing to be found is a team member's willingness to be vulnerable. As you can see in this last pyramid, there's some words out here to the side on all of them. The one next to trust says vulnerability. One of the main things when building trust is your employees have to be vulnerable. They have to be willing to talk about the openness of their mistakes and weaknesses, and then that just helps build trust for the whole team, and everyone's able to come together and help stay away from this dysfunction. The absence of trust will lead into a fear of conflict. So a fear of conflict, it leaves a team unable to having real, honest, passionate conversations about ideas and situations. And why this is important because people get in meetings, and even when you get in groups in class, you get in a meeting and someone may have an idea and you may not think it's the best idea, but you don't want to have that awkward moment where you say, I think that's a bad idea, and then there's tension. And it's kind of what we engage in is artificial harmony is what the author calls it. It's just everyone acts like everything's good because people don't want to voice their opinions and do what's right. And this can be a big problem for a team. One of the ways I think about it is the phrase is iron sharpens iron. Kind of like people help people understand what they can do to be better and work together. And this is a big problem as a team, and it branches from that absence of trust, which is the first dysfunction that we talk about, and can lead in to a lack of commitment. So a lack of commitment. The greatest cause of a lack of commitment are desire for consensus and certainty. So the author says that great teams know how dangerous consensus can be. Because when everyone just wants to do the same thing and no one wants to speak up because they're afraid of that conflict and they don't trust each other to say their ideas that they really mean, it can be hard for a company to get the most out of their teams. And certainty, great teams unite behind decisions and commit, and when everyone buys in, stuff just kind of takes off for them. Failure to commit will lead to ambiguity among directions and priorities. Back to that pyramid, you can see the word next to commitment is ambiguity. This is just, people don't really believe in what they're doing, and it's hard to be successful and be great if you don't really believe in what's going on. Lack of commitment leads to an avoidance of accountability. This is just when, people in those groups are afraid to call each other out, and they're afraid to let people know that, they're not meeting the standards of the team, or they're not doing what needs to be done. And it's bad for a team because low accountability encourages mediocrity and creates resentment among team members. And it's just a bad situation. As you can see, as we work up this pyramid of dysfunctions, then it just gets worse and teams start to kind of fall apart in a sense. And then inattention to results. So members care about something other than the goals of the group. This is just what kills the team at the top of the pyramid. Their desire for their ego and status block out the goals. It stunts a group's growth, and you just can't be a team and get to this point. It'd just be really hard to bounce back from. So some more information. So what he does after talking about these dysfunctions and talking about the story is he shows you a little team assessment questionnaire, and there's some questions about how passionate your team is, or morale is affected by failure to achieve team goals. And what you do is you rate these just like a normal rating system. And when your score tallies up, you can see how likely it is that your team could end up falling into the fate of these 5 dysfunctions. So some more information. So how can we overcome the dysfunctions? Which is a big question because teams need to avoid these to be successful. So overcoming the dysfunctions, overcoming the absence of trust. You can use exercises like personal histories. When you get to know each other, there's going to be more trust. Team effectiveness exercises. This is where people just kind of tell other people how effective they are as a team to build morale, to help build trust. And then personality and behavior preferences it just comes down to knowing each other will help teams trust each other more. Some fear conflict things like mining. That's just when you make a decision and 2 people are in an argument, you kind of bring up that argument and let them know that it's all right to argue, and conflict is good and it can help build for the team. Some things that help lack of commitment is cascading messaging. So when management or a group leader makes a big commitment, they cascade that message down on how important it is throughout the company. And then you use things like deadline and low-risk exposure therapy. So making decisions in a low-risk situation so you can work on making that commitment and sticking to it, and then hopefully building up to bigger risk situations. Overcoming avoidance of accountability is things like publication of goals, progress reviews, team awards. So if people can see these goals, they're attainable, they're achievable, and they'll be held accountable if they don't reach them. And then for the inattentional results, it's just things like declaration of those results. No one wants to know that their results are out there and they're not doing very well. And results-based awards can also help overcome the dysfunction of that. So in the book, some assumptions that I made is it assumes that the reader has a solid understanding of how teams and meetings function in a corporate setting. So, what I really think that is in the story he talks about Catherine and she works at Decision Tech, and it's just if you didn't have a lot of knowledge of how the corporate world works, or someone like me who doesn't have a ton of work experience, it kind of would be hard to follow along with some of the things going on in the story because you've never been there, you can't relate as much, so it might be kind of harder to understand what's going on there. And like that's what I'm saying, exactly what's happening in the team at all points in the story. At some points, I didn't think things in the team were that bad, but they turned out to be a lot worse after I understood the dysfunctions and what was going on. And it assumes the reader has a team experience to relate to the story overall. Just the reader being inexperienced or maybe not knowing as much about being in a team or being in a corporate situation where you're on a group and it's not working well, it might be a little bit hard for someone like that to follow along. Some of the implications that will hinder the success of readers when they enter into a team situation. So if you don't really look at what he's saying here and understand what he means with these dysfunctions and what's going on, it could really hurt you because you could be a person on a team that causes it to be dysfunctional. So not understanding the 5 dysfunctions and the implications of them, it'll just make it harder for you to succeed in a team. and overall they'll be less equipped to get out and get the most out of a team, whether they're working as a member or as a leader. And then some of the points of view the author takes, he's a team leader, so when he plays the role of captain in the story, he uses this point to show how hard it is to lead a team and make those decisions and stay persistent and dedicated. But then he also shows the roles of all those team members, because it shows it's hard to be a team member too when the leader's telling you things and you're trying to do something different and you're just trying to be successful and trying to keep your ego out of it. It can be really hard. And then he also just teaches at the end of the story about those 5 dysfunctions and how they're related and how they can be solved and overcome. And he just does a really good job of talking it all out. And I really enjoyed reading it and learning about those dysfunctions. I think it's some really real world valuable stuff, and it was all good.